Hi, today we'll be looking at the ongoing South Korean television series, Extraordinary Attorney Woo. A 5-year-old girl named Woo Young-woo is introduced. Her father, Gwang Ho, takes her to the hospital. The doctor claims she's diagnosed with autism after examination. While the father and daughter are returning home, the house owner fights with Gwang Ho, accusing him of having an affair with his wife. As soon as the two of them start fighting, young Woo gets disturbed and speaks out about the criminal law. Gwang Ho is shocked and ecstatic to hear this because it's the first time young Woo spoke. The fact that she's memorized every topic from his books on criminal law stuns him even more. We see a grown-up young Woo who's obsessed with the whales. She gets out of bed and prepares for her first day as an autistic lawyer at law firm Hanbada. On the way to work, she listens to music in order to calm her mind. As she arrives at the building, the revolving door makes it difficult for her to get inside. A short while later, Lee Jun-ho shows up and assists her in entering through the revolving door. He also guides her to the office of attorney Myung-suk. Myung-suk decides to give her a case to test her abilities, and if she fails, Myung-suk will fire her. He gives her the case of an old woman who used an iron to strike her husband who had dementia. Initially, young Woo becomes sidetracked because she perceives the iron is a whale, but Myung-suk advises her to stay focused on the case. Young Woo then meets with the old woman in the conference room to investigate the matter. The elderly woman is a little concerned because she feels young Woo is too young to handle the case. Young Woo reminds the woman that she and her father were formerly tenants in her place. As soon as she recognizes her, the woman hugs young Woo. Throughout the investigation, young Woo discovers that the old woman's spouse was a retired public official having pension and rent as their income source. After inquiry, young Woo gives her findings to Myung-suk with the conclusion that the woman is innocent. She also gives a justification, stating that the woman wouldn't kill her husband since he was the only source of her income, and if she killed him, the pension and rent would not be paid to her. After hearing this, Myung-suk is shocked and amazed by her work. He also expresses regret to her for his earlier actions. As soon as they arrive at the hospital, the doctor lets them know that the patient has a cerebral hematoma as a result of an external injury. They then proceed to see the couple, but the husband screams at young Woo when he sees her. As a result, they leave the room and speak to the woman outside. Young Woo asks about the lady's intention while hitting her husband, as it determines the charge upon her. Later, when they get back to the office, Myung-suk decides to send young Woo to court as attorney of Hanbada. Young Woo struggles once more to pass through the rotating door. Her co-worker, Soo-yeon, assists her but also criticizes her for acting stupid. The following day in court, Myung-suk sends young Woo to interrogate the old husband, and he erupts in rage as per their plan. Therefore, the trial is postponed while the elderly guy is transported to the hospital. After a short break, young Woo is on the verge of proving her case, but at the same time, she receives the news of the elderly man's death. The defense attorney for the prosecution seizes the opportunity and claims that the case is of murder. During the funeral, young Woo tries to console the woman but is unable to do so due to her autism. Later, Jun-ho approaches her in the workplace and gives her the autopsy report of the victim. Following this, they begin conversing when suddenly something clicks on her head. Then she learns the victim's brain hemorrhage was due to chronic headache, not an iron-related injury. In court, young Woo presents her testimony and supports it by interrogating the doctor who was in charge of the case. She effectively disproves the accusation that it was a murder case by showing the victim's cerebral sickness as he passed out as a result of it. Later in the office, Jun-ho congratulates young Woo for her first accomplishment. He also brings the woman, who gives her a hug and thanks. In the following scene, we see the CEO of Hanbada law firm, who approaches Gwang Ho at his restaurant, appearing to know each other from the past. The wedding ceremony, where bride and groom walk on stage. The bride is moving when she suddenly discovers someone and becomes preoccupied. She then treads on her own clothing, prompting the dress to slip down and revealing her upper body. The groom's grandfather notices the bride's goddess tattoo on her back. Meanwhile, Gwang Ho and young Woo are watching the wedding film on TV. Her father asks if she wants to wear the bridal dress, to which she replies by asking the same thing to him. According to Gwang Ho, every father dreams of accompanying his daughter down the aisle. However, young Woo is more interested in chatting about whales than humans. Later, Myung addresses the situation with the rest of his staff and discusses how they would receive 1 billion won in compensation. He divides the group into two. One team goes to see the couple, and the other team searches the hotel for evidence as undercover operatives. While Soo-yeon and Jun-ho travel to the hotel, Min-woo and Young-hoo move in the direction of the couple. When Min-woo and Young-woo first meet the bride, she explains that when she tried on her wedding dress, it was loose, but the hotel staff used pins to tighten it. The bride further asserts her father handled the guest list, and as a result, none of her friends received invitations to the wedding. Young-woo then inquires as to the bride's affection for her spouse, after discovering no images of him in the room and the absence of a wedding ring in her hand. The bride also admits that she used to play piano at church where the groom's grandfather used to direct the choir. She first met the groom through his grandfather. Following this, when they meet the groom, they find out their marriage has been planned by their families. The groom claims that his grandfather wants to annul the marriage because he found a tattoo of a goddess on the bride's back and felt betrayed. He further said that following the incident, the bride is seeing a psychiatrist. On the other side, Jun-ho and Soo-yeon are traveling in the direction of the hotel, but Soo-yeon is having stomach problems. As soon as they get to the hotel, she dashes to the bathroom. A short while later, Young-woo makes her way to the hotel with a pair of pants for Soo-yeon to change into. Young-woo takes her place because she has an upset stomach and goes for the investigation with Jun-ho. Both of them meet the dressing team leader, and Young-woo asks to try on the same bridal dress. In the washroom, Soo-yeon overhears a worker discussing Ju-hui, one of the staff members who was fired due to a wedding dress incident. She quickly contacts Jun-ho and informs him of the same. Jun-ho then approaches the worker and asks about Ju-hui, but the worker remains silent. At the same moment, the dressing team leader calls him over to see Young-woo dressed up. Seeing Young-woo dressed up as a bride, Jun-ho is unable to take his eyes off of her. Later, Young-woo and Jun-ho locate the hotel employee when they're in the bakery. They both go up to the worker and ask about Ju-hui, but they're surprised to discover that Ju-hui has already left the country. On the other side, Min-woo and Soo-yeon make their best effort to convince the bride's psychiatrist to testify in the court, but the doctor refuses to do so. The following day, the employee they met at the bakery is presented by Jun-ho as a witness in court. According to the witness, the incident was not an accident because the bride's dress was not actually hers. She further clarifies Ju-hui was fired as a result of accidentally tearing the clothing. The dressing team leader then switched the dress for one that was a little larger in size. After this, the defendant's side calls the bride for interrogation. The defendant's attorney explains that the bride has shared her thoughts on the Waggle website. The bride has stated that she was relieved that the wedding was called off since she didn't want to wed a man she barely knew. Later in the office, Myung-suk counsels the bride to reveal everything and not hold anything back. The bride then says that the marriage was moreover a deal because the groom's grandfather agreed to give her land as a wedding gift. After hearing this, something struck in Young-woo's mind, and she informs the group that they're now eligible to request compensation for special damages. She further says that they can fight by claiming that the incident cost her land worth 32.2 billion won and that they can demand compensation for it. As a result of her admiration, Myung-suk requested Young-woo prepare the statement so that they can present it to both families. The next day, the bride's father is given the same information along with a notification that they'll be asking for 10% of the land in compensation because 32.2 billion won is a significant sum to pay for the legal process. Upon hearing this, the bride herself doesn't appear to be delighted about it, but the bride's father is overjoyed. The next day in court, Myung-suk successfully proves the groom's grandfather had promised to give land to the bride as a wedding gift. As they're about to win the trial, the bride interrupts saying that she wants to drop the lawsuit. Young-woo seems to have assisted the bride in dropping the lawsuit. With her decision, the court dismisses the case. Following this, the bride yells at her father, confessing that she's a homosexual, a Buddhist, and in love with the woman who's standing next to her in the court. It's also revealed that she became preoccupied on the wedding day because she saw her beloved. She then holds her partner's hand and walks away, shocking everyone. The Hanbada crew dines together, and Young Woo brings some meals to her father as well. She tells her father getting married may be challenging for her due to her autism, but if she does, she wants her father to marry as well so that he won't be left alone. In the following scene, the CEO of Taisen law firm is shown being interviewed, and shortly after that, Young Woo is informed that the bride has withdrawn her lawsuit. The CEO is impressed when she discovers that Young Woo is the lawyer who made it possible for the compensation of $32.2 billion. The couple who arrives back home. As soon as they walk into the house, they hear their younger son, Jung-hoon's voice. They rush over to him and see Jung-hoon viciously hitting his older brother, Sang-hoon. While hastily pushing Jun-hoon away, the father notices that Sang-hoon is not moving. On the other hand, Young Woo seems to be overjoyed to see her nameplate outside her cabin. Soo-yeon shows up just then and assists Young Woo in taking her picture. At the same moment, Young Woo receives a call from Myun-suk and heads towards his cabin. While explaining the new case, Myun-suk says that the parents saw their younger son kill their elder son by beating him. He further clarifies that the 22 broken ribs and thoracic injury resulted in internal chest hemorrhages, which was the cause of death. The victim was also intoxicated at the time of death. Additionally, he decides to take on the case himself, but he wants Young Woo's help because Jun-hoon has autism as well. When Young Woo overhears this, she tries to explain that there are various forms of autism and that she is not like Jung-hoon. Following this, they both go to meet the couple and look into the matter. During their investigation, they learn the two brothers had a good relationship. Sang-hoon was intelligent, modest, and was always good to Jung-hoon. According to the couple, Jung-hoon yelled repeatedly during the incident, using the words, "Die, stop." Myung-suk asks the couple if they can meet Jung-hoon, as he may open up to Young Woo, to which the couple agrees. Later, the couple brings Jun-hoon to the office, but things don't turn out as they had anticipated. Myung-suk tries to talk with them, but he doesn't respond. And when Young Woo directly asks about the incident, he becomes disturbed, prompting the investigation to end. The following day, Myung-suk, Young Woo, and Soo-yeon sing Jung-hoon's favorite song in an effort to get his attention. This makes it easier for them to speak with Jun-hoon. But when Young Woo inquires about the incident, he keeps saying "die, stop" over and over again. However, this time, something clicks in her mind and shares that the words he's repeating might be the action he saw rather than the word he said. She asserts that Sung-hoon may have tried suicide because the autopsy revealed a mark on his neck and that he was inebriated. When Myun-suk inquires about his brother's suicide attempt, Jung-hoon responds in the affirmative. However, his mother disproves their claims by ensuring that he always responded positively, irrespective of the questions they ask. Before they depart, his mother informs them that she won't let them meet Jung-hoon from now on. Later, Jun-ho and Young Woo visit the couple's home to look for suicide-related evidence. On their way, they come across Jun-ho's old acquaintance, who mistakes him for doing voluntary work. This makes him feel sorry for Young Woo and apologizes to her. At the crime scene, they find Sang-hoon's diary, as well as a rope that may have been used by Sang-hoon. The following day at work, the diary is given to Sang-hoon's parents. According to the contents of the diary, Sang-hoon had made several suicide attempts because of his scholastic failure, and Jung-hoon sought to save him. According to Young Woo, Jung-hoon's sentence can be avoided by bringing up the suicide evidence. However, the parents don't believe that their child could commit suicide, and as a result, they walk out angrily after quitting the case with Hanbada. While working late at the workplace, Young Woo goes through the news of the same case on social media and sees various negative remarks concerning autistic persons, which makes her upset. In the court, Young Woo tries to reduce the sentence for Jung-hoon on the grounds of his autism. However, the prosecutor opposes her and ultimately stops her by bringing up Young Woo's autism. According to the prosecutor, Young Woo's statements of saving autistic patients is not valid because she herself is an autistic person. Back in the office, Young Woo tries to imitate the suicide attempt, but Jung-ho thinks it's real and pulls her away. Subsequently, they both collapse on the ground. Just then, something clicks in Young Woo's mind, and she rushes to Myun-suk. Young Woo finds Myun-suk sitting with the defendant's father. She says that Sang-hoon broke his ribs because of falling to the ground and not because of Jung-hoon's beating. Jung-hoon is then absolved of responsibility for his brother's death. After hearing this, the father is persuaded and agrees to let them reveal the suicide case in court, but he asks Young-woo to be off the case. Despite being hurt, Young-woo decides to stay out because she believes that the judge can't differentiate between her autism and the defendant's. This doesn't convince Myun-suk, so he approaches the CEO with the request to reassign Young-woo to the investigation. She suggests that he refer the matter to another attorney in order to demonstrate that the two of them work well together, and he agrees. After that, he visits Sung-jun, another attorney, and gives him the case files. The next day at court, attorney Sung-jun is able to prove that the victim's rib broke because of falling on the floor. Following this, the judge proceeds to question the defendant and comes to the conclusion that he's mentally unfit. As a result, the judge declares that the defendant is not guilty. Despite the favorable decision, Young-woo remains upset about her autism and believes that she is a poor choice for an attorney. Later, Jun-ho purchases a present for Young-woo, but he can't find her in her cabin. On the other side, Young-woo is seen printing up her letter of resignation. She gathers her possessions and departs from Hanbada law firm since she feels helpless to assist her clients. The following episode begins with two brothers paying a visit to their younger brother who works on the farm. The two brothers decide to divide their father's land according to the law, with the eldest receiving 50%, the second receiving 30%, and the youngest receiving 20%. The younger brother does not appear to be satisfied, but the two brothers put pressure on him and force him to sign the documents. It's revealed that the youngest brother is the father of Gulami, Young-woo's friend. In the following scene, we see Gulami who rushes over to Young-woo and tells her everything. She explains that the land compensation worth 10 billion won was divided, and her father got just 2 billion won. Furthermore, she considers her father to be a fool because he agreed to pay all of the taxes totaling 2.26 billion won on his own, and ended up with a debt of 260 million won. Young-woo's father inquires as to why her father signed such a detrimental document. She responds that her father thinks her uncles are amazing because they went to big universities in Seoul, but her father is just a farmer and couldn't disobey his elder brothers. She then requests assistance from Young-woo, who informs her that she's no longer an attorney. However, Young-woo's father agrees to assist Gulami, so the three of them proceed to Gulami's village to check the documents. On the way, Young-woo is reminded of her school days, when she was frequently bullied by her classmates. As a result, she mostly stayed in the teacher's room and the security room to avoid bullies. One day, while she was being bullied, Gulami fought the bullies and saved her. They have since become close friends. Back in the present, the three of them arrive at Gulami's house and discuss the documents with their parents. Dong-sam, her father, tells her what his brother told him about the land division law. When Young-woo hears this, she says the law has been revised, and the new law states that all children should receive equal amounts of inheritance regardless of birth order, gender, or marital status. Young-woo also explains that they can revoke his expression of will because the other brother deceived their youngest. Initially, Dong-sam is hesitant to sue his brothers, but his wife and daughter persuade him to do so. Dong-sam also asks Young-woo if she'll be the attorney, to which she responds she's no longer an attorney and will refer to another. The next day, Young-woo calls Gulami and directs her to Myun-suk's Hanbada law firm. Gulami follows her instructions and informs Myun-suk of the case. After hearing the case, Myun-suk believes there's a very low chance of winning because proving deception will be difficult. Furthermore, he refuses to take on the case. As a result, Young-woo decides to visit the office on her own. When Young-woo speaks with Myun-suk, he claims that she is still an attorney and that he'll not process her resignation letter until she specifies the proper reason for resigning. Following that, he asks Young-woo to handle the case, and he agrees to appear in court with her as senior lawyer but will not assist her with the case. Meanwhile, Min-woo inquires with Myun-suk whether Young-woo will be penalized for her irregular attendance and picking up random cases on her own. He also inquires as to why Myun-suk hasn't yet processed her resignation. Myun-suk responds that her work is excellent and her thinking is creative. He also requests that he learn something from her. In the next court hearing, Jin-hyuk is called as a witness, but he claims that he did not hear any conversation between the brothers. The two brothers appear to have bribed him into changing his statement. Young-woo's and Gulami's families are devastated to be backstabbed. The following day in court, Young-woo uses the same incident to cancel her client's gift contract. She also provides police call records and written assault documents as evidence. In addition, Dong Sam and Gulami's physical injuries support the argument. The defendants claim that the incident was planned on purpose in order to cancel the gift contract, but Young Woo cleverly defends herself by asking if there's any evidence to support it. However, in reality, it appears that Young Woo herself planned the incident in order to sway the case in their favor. Following that, the judge approves the change in the claim's purpose and cancels the gift contract. Later in the office, Junho surprises Young Woo with a huge whale painting in the main conference room. As Young Woo witnesses this, she's overcome with emotion. After this, the two brothers kneel and apologize to their younger brother for their actions. Despite their heinous actions, Dong Sam is so humble that he decides to divide the inheritance equally after the deduction of taxes. Young Woo regains her confidence and enthusiasm for her job, so she requests that Myun Suk not process her resignation letter, to which she agrees. She then walks happily and excitedly towards her cabin. The scene then shifts to a few months ago, when Han Seon meets Gwang Ho at his restaurant. She speaks with Gwang Ho and persuades him to send Young Woo to the Hanbada law firm because she believes she's very intelligent and talented. Gwang Ho is thankful as Young Woo wasn't hired by any law firms because of her autism. On her way back, she looks at Young Woo's picture and notes that she resembles her mother. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.